To be in my divine feminine to me is to be connected to my heart and to my womb, to consciously connect to my womb space and whatever practices and rituals that is. The womb is the divine feminine. And for me, a huge part of my path was connecting to my menstrual blood. Every month when I bleed, I offer my blood to the earth in a sacred exchange and reciprocity. It's feeding the earth that feeds us. It's just creating that symbiosis, creating that reciprocity, that exchange of the great mother who, this is our home, this is our body. It's loving the earth. It's loving yourself, loving your womb, loving your blood is loving God that created you, the goddess within. It's all one. So it's the oneness. The divine feminine to me is connecting to the oneness in every single thing around us, all people, all plants, all animals, living in love and unconditional love.
This is the divine feminine right here. This is the actual portal. These are things that I never in a million years ever would have thought I would do, much less talk about. And now I want to then open up this kind of experience in my retreats. It's like, how can I now be the bridge to bring more women into this kind of healing? I'm getting the full body tingles as I say that. Well, hey there, and welcome back to Fire and Soul, or maybe I should say, welcome back to myself. It's been a minute. It's been about 5 or 6 weeks since I last recorded an episode, and I'm recording this in my new home. So there's been a lot of life that has been lived since I last connected with you. And first, I want to say it's so good to be back. It's so good to see you for those of you who are catching this on the YouTube, and it's definitely good to connect for those of you who catch this on the audio. Where do I even start? Well, today's conversation is definitely going to drop us in and catch you up to so much that is happening and getting activated within my own life. And I imagine if it's happening for me, then it's certainly happening for you. The awakening deepens and opens, and it feels so much more expansive now than ever. And the last time that I saw you, I was recording with Brother Truth. Those 2 episodes, they were absolutely on fire. Some of our highest downloads ever of all time. And I'm so, so excited that you are beginning to get interested and curious about the sovereignty space. So for that, I'm most grateful. Since then, I went to an incredible retreat called the Rewild Retreat, which is co-founded by my guest today, Davana May. You're going to learn all about that and her and some of my experience there that was completely life-altering. Then I led my next Soul Essence retreat, which was the deepest, most profound healing experience that I ever remember having. And I know I say that after each Soul Essence retreat, but the more that I evolve, the more that the women that keep coming back evolve, the deeper that we go. And it's always so beautiful to invite those who are newer onto the experience with us, because there's always like 5 or 6 new women. And it's so beautiful. By the way, we have our next retreat coming up May 20th through the 24th in Texas Hill Country, 30 minutes outside of the Austin airport at this beautiful, accessibly luxurious estate on 7 acres. And as of this moment, there are a handful of spots, and we're working with a really soft, gentle heart opener one night. And we're going to bring in some womb healing, which you're going to learn more about today. And incredible sound frequency healing and some other beautiful surprises. It's an all-inclusive experience at an incredible investment rate. So if this calls to you or you've been thinking about it, perhaps this is the time for you to follow that nudge and check out the link in the show notes. But I'll also verbally just say it in case you can't help yourself and you want to check it out now. It would be at michelle-sorrow.com. And I'll just pop right up under offerings for the Soul Essence Retreat happening in March. And then I moved again. I moved into this house, which is feeling like a place to be for now. Who knows for how long, but it's in a beautiful community. And so then there was a lot of like rooting and grounding here. And I'm going through all of those initiations to get me here. And I feel completely changed, honestly, since the last time that I saw you. I went to a trust law seminar in California, which was really wild to be in Texas, domiciling, and to go visit California and to get on a plane to come back here, to come home. So that was in and of itself deep medicine for me. And the people that I have met and that I'm really connected with, especially I want to give a shout out to my Real Law Mastermind peeps. They're like family at Soul Tribe. And then, of course, the Law Dojo. It's been incredible. And I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't required great courage and great bravery and tenderness and so many initiations as I continue to navigate the longest dark night of the soul ever. But I'm definitely here for it. And I know you are too, or you wouldn't be tuning in. So let's do this thing, we just continue to awaken to more and more and more and more and more and more. There's always a new root, a new level, a new layer, new shedding. And so that's what today's conversation is going to be. I mean, it is deep, it's potent, it's rich. It's also a bit of an introductory on what womb wisdom really even is. What is womb healing? Why should I care? Ooh, do I even want to talk about that? Am I allowed to talk about that? Yes, you are. And it is essential in our times to root, to ground, to reconnect with our womb, with our heart, and to Mother Earth. And these are things that I never imagined that I would be even talking about, much less sharing or experiencing for myself. But it has been a beautiful state and deeply cathartic and deeply healing in ways that I feel more connected and more tuned into my intuition than I ever have. And if I'm feeling this and the other women that I'm knowing that are in this space are feeling this, then I feel absolutely called to share it with you. And I hope that you also share this with others. This is probably the most beautiful conversation I've had in a very, very long time. It's just real, it's raw, it's honest, it's beautiful. It's kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Think of it as like a potpourri in our natural organic garden and just kind of take what feels right and resonant and get curious about what you might think like, ooh, I don't know about that. That is the spot. That is the place. That is the root to notice and to work with any of maybe the resistances that might want to come up from just some deep indoctrination and programming to keep us disconnected from truth. Davana May is a beautiful soul. And as you will learn, I just joined her on her Rewild Retreat back in September. I talk about that and so much more. But I want to read her bio just to really do her honor. And divine justice. Davana May embodies the essence of feminine empowerment as a stewardess of the healing arts, sacred birth keeper, and an Ayurvedic wellness guide specializing in postpartum care. FYI, quick aside, doesn't matter that you probably are not in childbearing years. Your daughter might, your granddaughter might, and certainly friends that you know and love. Two of my very best friends are in their early 30s. I will be sharing this episode with them. Plus, so many of us have had hysterectomies or partial hysterectomies. There's so much womb healing that needs to be done, and this is available for us through this conversation as well. Devana holds a fervent dedication to advocating for women's autonomy in birth and serves as a traditional midwife for those who choose to birth sovereign and free. Drawing from her expertise as a certified herbalist, aromatherapist, yoga, and Pilates practitioner, Devana integrates the magic of plant and flower medicine, dance and movement, breath and sound, and nourishing rituals in her practice, guiding women through emotional and spiritual rebirth. She is also a singer, weaving the power of song and vocal expression into her work, guiding others in deepening their vocal connection and expanding their authentic voice. Devana cultivates communities of sisterhood, that I know for sure, where women gather in circles of trust, support, expansion, and liberation. Through retreats, mentorships, and intimate gatherings, she holds space for women to connect with their wombs, intuition, inner power, and the divine essence of the goddess within. I really hope that you really tune in all the way to this conversation and allow yourself to fully be present to the medicine being served. It is beautiful. So without further ado, my love, so good to see you again. Here is my conversation with Davana May called Amplify Your Womb Wisdom, Connecting with Earth, Nature, and Your Divine Feminine. Davana May, I love your middle name and I love your name. Welcome to Fire and Soul.
Hello, hello. Grateful to be here. Thank you, Michelle.
Tell me about your name. I've heard you talk about it before, but I want to hear you talk about it because it's so special.
Yes. So my name, Devana, is my birth name. My mother worked in a flavoring company. She was a chemist. And Devana is actually a flower that grows in India. And she is used in perfumes and desserts. So she's also essential oil. So my mom has the bottle still from 37 years ago, the bottle of Davana essential oil. And it's actually connecting to the flower and connecting to the essential oil of Devana was a huge part of my spiritual awakening path that set me on my life journey of working with the plants and the trees and the flowers as medicine and serving women and the awakening of the divine feminine on planet Earth.
Ah, and what a time it is. I remember hearing you talk about your name and the back of a bottle when you were first really in your deepest parts. Well, it's all deep, but the awakening,
Yep.
that awaken fast. And you're like, okay,
Yes.
here we go.
Yes. I was in a relationship that was psychologically and emotionally abusive, and I didn't know it. That's often very common with women or anyone in abusive, psychological, emotionally abusive relationships. You don't understand what's happening. You don't realize this is an abusive situation, oftentimes. And I was in it for 4.5 years, and it was within the first week of working with the essential oil of Devana, I started researching the symptoms I was having that started to occur in this relationship, like insomnia, depression, anxiety, paranoia, thinking I was going to die, every day thinking about death, which is depression. And I just typed in these symptoms and then typed in controlling boyfriend because he was a very controlling man. And basically floodgates opened of red flags, domestic violence, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and the back of that bottle says "Awaken Fast." So it within that first week of wearing Devana during my aromatherapy certification with Wisdom of the Earth, where we had to write a paper. What happens to you and people around you when you start working with these flower essences and these plant essences, these essential oils? And I had to call my teacher and I say, do people like leave their relationships when they wear these essential oils? Like what's happening here? And she helped me through that process, and the journey unfolded of self-love and connecting to the God within.
Mm. Oh, what a way to start. Thank you. I just got the full body tingles. I was just so feeling that, especially when you made that comment of depression. Thoughts are like, basically, I don't want to live. I don't want to be here. And I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. And there's so much of that happening on the planet right now.
Oh
So
yeah.
many exits in the way that I feel about that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is I come here to do the work, the real work, like the real ones kind of work. I don't want to repeat that. I don't think you just get like you don't get to bypass that. And I'm like, okay, just do it. Just do it, honor it, refine, evolve, right? Like it's pivotal for the evolution of human consciousness and quite frankly, humanity in my
Mhm.
eyes. But yeah, there's a lot of exiting. So what is the antidote, my friend?
Mhm. Find the magic in life and pray. At that time I was also atheist. I wasn't believing in anything after death or God. I was in the dark night of the soul. And it was in that relationship actually that it was like my soul was hanging on to something. And I started to, well, first I had psychedelic mushrooms, really like boom, opened me up and cleared me. Where the message the first time I had the mushrooms was get off birth control. I had forgotten my pills, and I was on birth control for over 8 years at that time. And the mushrooms were like, get off of it, stop taking your pills. I started bleeding while I was on the mushrooms.
Oh.
And it was like the birth control is so bad for you, so toxic. I threw away the microwave that was on the counter and put the juice box. I had a juicer my dad gave me for Christmas. There was no room on the counter for it. It was sitting in a box for almost a year on the floor. And it was with mushrooms that I took the microwave, put it in the alley by the trash can, and then put the juicer on the fridge. And then I went on a whole holistic path. I stopped eating meat, started reading, cutting the chemicals out in my foods and in my hair products, in my beauty products, and went on a very holistic, natural path of working with the plants. I did a Ayurvedic, learn how to make your own beauty products. That's actually the first place I found essential oils. I was like, what are these oranges and roses and flowers and bottles? And I went to Rainbow Acres in Venice Beach and bought all the essential oils and started making my own hair products because I had dreadlocks at the time. I had my locks. So my lock journey and Davana essential oil, connecting with God, the flowers, praying like there has to be something more. There has to be something more to this life. What is the meaning of this existence was my question. And the animals started to come to me, the white owl, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, the dragonflies, just starting to connect with the meaning of the animals, which is my indigenous roots. The Native Americans see the animals as our messengers, and I would see the animals and then research what do they mean, and they helped guide me greatly on my path, the animals and the flowers.
So beautiful. And I can fully relate the animals, the birds, the energy tree medicine. When I was in some of the steepest parts of my own awakening, I would just go to a park and sit. It was in Los Angeles, Woodland Hills, near my mom's. And two particular pine trees, maybe 400 feet tall, they let me know they were archangels Metatron and Michael. And all I had to do was just learn to root. That was the message. Then butterflies were like, keep it light, joyous, and free. We got you, girl. Squirrels were like,
Yes.
don't you worry. Like, you've got this, like all the joy and like you're being prepared. Don't worry. Like, because I was worried, like, what about my business? What about money? What about all that? Right. And they're like, we got you, like, you're good. And the angels, the archangels known as the trees were just like root, root, root.
Yes.
Don't even try to rise. Everything
Yes.
you need to know is to root right now. And I did that for 10 months.
Mm.
Anyway, so thank you for sharing that because that's so much a part of where I'm excited to go with you today. But one of the parts of you, I want to just honor before we dive into you being a radical birth keeper and a womb wisdom keeper. I mean, there's so much beauty that we're going to talk about today and really, I believe, open a lot of hearts, minds, and wombs. And so I feel emotionally even talking about it, just what I've learned briefly under your guidance. So I recently attended your Rewild Retreat. I had seen the Rewild Sacred Sisters Retreat a few years back on social when I was still living in LA, but had awakened. I was down the, sort of metaphorical red pill rabbit hole or whatever, white pill, I don't even know terms back then, right? And I started getting the call for Austin, but I was too scared to do that on my own at that point. And also I wasn't ready to leave LA. I wasn't ready to leave the mountains and the oceans and all the things and people that I love and knew my whole life. But the call was there and it was strong. But anyway, so then I saw the 2021 retreat and I was like, those people, I think they could be my people. But it just seemed so far-fetched. I didn't look like y'all. I didn't dress like y'all. But there was something about the essence and the energy and the frequency that was really captivating and activating my soul. And I was like, what is that? And so anyway, then it just sort of twisted and turned. I think you did one in 22, right? In September.
2021 was our last one.
Okay,
That was the one.
So that was the one where I was like, okay, these women, that time, that experience, one day. And then I got here in July and I saw that you guys started talking about it online. And I was like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what I was signing up for. I just saw it on yours or maybe Heather's feed. I think it was yours. Yeah, because I wasn't even following Heather yet. Activation Vibration. Some of my listeners or viewers might know of her. And I just signed up and I was like, I just like, great, it's here, I'm done. Go into that. I really thought I was just getting there to learn more about how to facilitate retreats, right? Like I'll learn a thing or two, which I did, by the way, which was beautiful. But by like 3 hours in, I was like, I can't even think about my retreats. I need to be here fully and wholly. And I learned about womb wisdom, womb healing, yoni mapping, yoni steams. I was up in a pussy altar. I was like in a trance walking up, like, what am I doing? I had all this shame around, should I even be going there? You guys held this amazing women's panel of like money, men, and God. That was the topic. And we were sharing, and all of a sudden I found myself walking to the front of the room again in a trance of like, I need to know this. And you like sat up and I was like, I want to talk to you. And I get emotional even thinking about it because there are so many women my age who, if we've never been told this, we've never known about this.
hit out. Like, I didn't expect to get so emotional, but I'm feeling what we're feeling, you know? And so a lot of women are like, oh yeah, this is old. We've been doing this for 20 years. It's like, no, there is a whole other wave that is waking up right now. They're learning about hospitals and the medical system. And anyway, I just wanted to honor you in my tears, because it's my emotion, so feeling it in my heart of gratitude, of thank you for doing what you do and what you are helping us awaken to ourselves, you know, about. And I don't even know if there's a question in here. I just want to honor that time and honor that retreat, because I know what it also takes to put on a retreat, not to that level. But thank you for bringing all that you did. I made my own drum. Like, it was incredibly profound. It was a shamanic journey. I had to surrender to the Texas lands because it had been kicking my ass, and I kept validating that and deepening and ingraining that. It's been an initiation since I got here, but it was like, you need to honor these lands that you're walking in. I was like, who is that even talking? But it was a strong message. So I bowed and I offered the Ho'oponopono prayer at that retreat in a private moment with me and God and the earth.
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt so opened after my womb steam, something I had never even heard of until this retreat. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And if there's anything that you just want to expand onto, I guess, from here, that feels like a fertile place to start with you, my friend.
Just thank you, Michelle. Thank you for your tears. They're tears for the collective. They're tears for your ancestors. They're tears for the womb, your womb, the collective womb, the cosmic womb. And I want to bring it back to 2013, which was the beginning of my awakening. I had this book, Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. And in this book, within the first few pages, she speaks to what we're seeing on the planet, what is happening to the planet, the destruction, just the violence, the rape of the earth is a reflection of our wombs. And women's connection to our wombs or disconnection to our wombs is a reflection of our connection or our disconnection to the earth. And the rest of the book went over my head. I wasn't ready for it yet, but that planted a seed in my heart, in my womb, of our wombs and the earth, the holistic path of our wombs and the holistic path to the earth, how they're woven together. And then fast forward about how many years later, back to 2021, I'm about to give birth to my second child. And I have this call a few days before he's born. I'm like, I need to order that book, Sacred Woman. It's been in our storage because we went off traveling, Bali, Thailand, moving around, and that book was in storage. And I just got the download. I need to order that book. I Amazoned it. It came in the next day. And I started doing some of the exercises in there, which is write a letter to your womb, apologize to her, thank her, any partners that you allowed to come in that you wanted to say no to, but you didn't have the boundaries, just writing a beautiful letter. And I just acknowledged my womb. I acknowledged the pain of all the women in the world. She takes you through a whole beautiful journey in this book. And I ended up 2 days later, my son was born. His name is Nature, and I free birthed him in the snowstorm. And this book, Sacred Woman, I feel like should be on every woman's bookshelf, but it's basically the holistic guide to life and to healing our wombs. And it's really prominent in the Black community with Black women. She really speaks to that audience, but it's for all women, but really Black women on this planet because of the slavery and racism, and Black women are treated the worst on planet Earth. Essentially, our wombs take a big hit, like so much diseases, fibroids, cysts, just so many things in Black women especially, but of course, all women everywhere. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it back to that book. And she talks about womb steaming in that book. She talks about smoke steaming, where you can take like sacred smoke and just put it over or, under your skirt, sit with sacred smoke. So many beautiful rituals and practices for the womb. And I also had a girlfriend in 2014 gifted me my first womb steam bag of herbs. And so 2014, right after leaving that abusive relationship and set me on my path, I did my first womb steam, and I started working with yoni eggs, which are crystals that you wear inside of the vagina, and you do beautiful work with. And that was part of my self-love journey. It was connecting to my womb, which is a huge part of the self-love journey, connecting to my menstrual cycle, to the cycles of the earth, to the seasons within, the seasons without. A few years after that, I did my herbalism apprenticeship with the Gaia School of Healing, where we sat with plants, 6 plants, and one day we would go on shamanic journeys, meditations, and connect with the spirit of the plants and what messages do they have for us. And just that prepared me for my first birth. So I was in that for 10 months, and I would get so many messages about my womb and the heart connection and just healing the programming. I actually had fear for being in this class. I was like, I'm doing something wrong. This is the devil. She called us green witches. That was the name of what she called us. And I was like, this is bad. And I was just seeing the deep programming from centuries about herbalism and about womb work and about women coming into their power and connecting with the plants and the trees, that this seed was planted centuries ago, that this is bad, that we are bad if we do this, that the church does not like this. And that is where this disconnection has come from. The rise of the Spanish Inquisition in the Roman Catholic Church, that said that the greatest threat to the Catholic Church are midwives. And that's because we hold the portal between death and we hold the consciousness and of the plants, and that we are the threshold. We hold the sacred space and the empowerment for us to heal with what God created.
Oh my gosh. Can you speak to something that I've heard you talk about on another podcast about the connection between our womb and our intuition and the war on our womb because of that, in addition, obviously, to what the church does not want us being activated on?
Yeah. So that comes, I think of the wild woman archetype, which is where Rewild is inspired from. The archetype of the wild woman, to me, is the one that we as a collective are the most cut off from. Which is our intuition. The wild woman is deeply connected to the earth, to the animals, to the plants, to her own sovereignty. And that has been kind of taken from us in a sense. And we've been so indoctrinated into like needing the medical system, looking outside of ourselves, giving our power away to authority figures. And the wild woman reclamation is in tune with our senses, with the shifts of the air, right? Like to be outside and to be connected to the spirits of the land around us. It gives us a power that no one can take from us, and that was taken from colonization in our African cultures and indigenous practices, who are very connected to the land and to the plants and to the animals. And it's coming back. We're remembering this power, but it also goes way back to the burning of the women in Europe. The women who were burned in Europe were the wise women, were the wild women, were the women that were connected to the earth, to the plants, to birth, to death, to their wombs. And we are still feeling the impact of that greatly today.
Even more so with all of the cancel culture and the censorship, right? So many people that I know are just so afraid to speak their truth, to speak up even at all. And it's like, yeah, because that's an imprint, right? In your ancestral lineage, which, by the way, and I'll just be very, very honest, because I got nothing to prove here. My audience knows, like, I hadn't even really considered ancestral lineage up until this year. And I remember sharing in the closing circle of your retreat, we were all kind of sharing our name, speaking our name, our full name, where our ancestors are from, if we knew, and our mother or our grandmother's full name. And I remember just like, it made me weep and like, oh, this is so beautiful, because I had never experienced anything like that. And I was like, I don't know. I don't have really any information. Why don't I have any information? And so instead of shaming myself, I was like, I don't know, but I want to know. So I shared that in the circle of like, 60, 70 of us at that moment, whomever could make it to the closing circle. And so I immediately got home and I called my mom and I said, what do I not know? Tell me everything. And she didn't know a whole lot, right? But it was just such a beautiful honoring of my mother. And I felt so connected to my grandmother and then my great grandmother. And I was like, this is how it goes. This is how it works. Right?
Yes.
And so I did feel opened and connected. And then it felt like, especially these times that we're living in, and so many women, especially remembering, awakening, and wanting to reconnect consciously to Mother Earth, to our bodies, to our wombs. At least this is my little itty bitty world right now. It's like, this is a way to honor our ancestral lineage, and also to heal, right? The parts of them that they couldn't. And so here we are in the midst of maybe the greatest shift in humanity's history, in the
Yeah.
evolution of our consciousness. And so this is the time. And it's so beautiful just to even get to be slightly inspired. But what I'm going to encourage anyone listening who's already perking up, because I feel it, it's like, just allow this to be the catalyst, the nudge, the inspired thought to cause you to take some action, whether that's go check out Devana and her offerings and whatever that might mean, but like pick up the book, Sacred Woman, but do something, right? To not just honor yourself in this one precious life that we have the honor to live on planet Earth, but also our ancestors. It feels really important. And I never knew that to be important. So thank you for the work you do.
Yeah, that was a huge part of my path, was the root connect, know your roots, know thy roots.
Roots.
Where are you going if you don't know where you came from? And I would spend hours talking to my uncle, asking him about my ancestors. What did they do? What did they love? What did my grandfather love? What did my grandmother? And you get to know yourself even more. Why are you here? What blood is running through you? Right? We were inside of our grandmothers, our mother, or the eggs of our grandmother, right? Was our mother. So we were inside of our grandmothers. So the things that our grandmothers went through, the trauma, the highs, the lows, we and ourselves are carrying with us. So it's important to know, what was your grandmother going through, because some of that is being carried through you as well.
Yeah. And this really actually ties into something that I'm deeply passionate and devoted to, which is the gene keys. And so I'm aware of like the gene key, which carries my core sacred wound. And I look at the shadow. I was like, man, that's my mother's shadow. That was my grandmother's shadow. I'm like, wow. So it's on me to fully integrate this and honor it, right? Because it reveals this beautiful gift. And so,
Yes.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I want to circle back. You mentioned something about a free birth. I don't want to assume anyone knows what that means. I happen to know a little bit more because I listened to your podcast. Also, my mother had a free birth with my youngest brother, her fourth child. But that was like 40 years ago, but I would love for you to expand on that. And then how did that awaken you into this awareness that your call, at least at this season in your life, is to be a radical birth keeper?
Yeah. So I'll start with sharing my first birth, my first pregnancy. It's like, I don't know, I knew I wanted to have a water birth. I was open. We were traveling. I knew we were going to be in Bali, and I was going to birth in Bali was the plan. So I started researching like birth centers, and I found this beautiful place called Bhumi Sehat, which is a gentle birthing center where they sing the Gayatri mantra as a baby comes out, and they do lotus births where they leave the placenta and the umbilical cord attached to the baby until it naturally falls off on its own, which is a whole beautiful sacred practice, and which I ended up doing for my third birth. But we get to Bali, and I go to visit Bhumi Sehat, where I read online they have beautiful water birthing tubs. And I get there and they say, oh, we don't have our tubs anymore. The government made us take them out because they don't approve of them. And so that was my first like thing of the system wanting to control women and to control our gentle natural births. And fast forward, a volcano ends up erupting. And so we end up staying in California. We go back to California, and I end up birthing in California. And I just am so tired at this point with having different providers and different appointments. And I'm just like, our insurance is covering a hospital birth. I'll just birth in a hospital, and I'll be able to tell women that you can have a natural, unmedicated vaginal birth in a hospital with your little electric candles and your essential oils, and just, you'll be able to hold your boundaries. And it was like, absolutely not. As soon as you step one foot into that hospital, you are theirs. You signed away all your rights. And I ended up getting put to sleep under general anesthesia and had a C-section cut open with Oxycontin and fentanyl as my pain relievers.
Oh my God.
For my first birth. So I was essentially sleeping, and I missed the birth of my first son. So that was a whole grief. And
how your son came into the world, right? Like not
exactly,
the vaginal canal
exactly.
and all of the beauty and all of that connection, right? Like, oh, the war that was caused on him for that
Yes.
lack of not being able to do that. Plus, there is phenomenal money in a C-section. So nowadays, Dr. Zach Bush talks about 9 out of 10 women are recommended or even scheduled for a fucking C-section. Sorry, I get angry.
Yeah.
Before they've even gone into the birthing room. Right.
Yeah.
So there's like $100,000 that people are like, hospitals are making now for the C-section. And because I had a C-section for hysterectomy, I don't know what they call it, but I had a hysterectomy. I understand that pain and that grief. And so I just want to say, I'm sorry, but yeah, please continue.
Yeah, but that essentially was the birth I had to have to set me on my path to become a radical birth keeper. So at the very end of that first pregnancy is where I saw an Instagram post, Free Birth Society. And it was the first time this word came into my field, but I didn't have enough time to go into it. I think I gave birth a few days after that, but Free Birth Society is essentially a collective. Emily Saldea, she is the pioneer. She has a podcast, the Free Birth Society podcast, and it is women who are choosing to birth outside of the system, whether it's solely by themselves with their partner or with a hired professional who does not have a license. She is not tied to the system, but she is a keeper of birth. She is there to serve the mother. She's there to serve women. She believes in the utmost divine natural physiological birth, and that she doesn't even need to be there. She understands that she's not needed at all, that the mother is full capacity to birth on her own, but she's there to provide comfort and support in whichever way the mother wants.
Holding
Sacred space. So we don't interfere. We don't do cervical checks. We won't abandon you at 42 weeks because the law says a midwife cannot attend a home birth if the mother goes past 42 weeks of her due date. All the different rules and regulations that a midwife, or a medwife, we call them, has to abide by. And of course, there are beautiful, amazing, holistic midwives out there. It's not every single one, but Free Birth, the Radical Birth Keeper School, was created. So it's a year-long program of learning how to hold space in birth as a sister, as a wise woman, as a medicine woman back in the day before the rise of the church and the industrial medical system that wanted to control birth and control women for deep reasons. That's a whole rabbit hole. But so with my second birth, I had a complete wild pregnancy, it's called, where I didn't take a pregnancy test, 0 ultrasounds, 0 doctor's appointments. I did have a chiropractor the last 6 weeks that I saw to just adjust my pelvis. It's full trust in my body. It's the way all the women gave birth before us, and we're all here. So clearly it worked. And there are a lot of myths and fears around that. So many people died in childbirth. It's actually not true. The same amount are dying now. It's not like any more died back then before ultrasounds and knives, scapulas, and surgery. So I had a wild pregnancy with my second birth. And then I hired Isabella. I hired a radical birth keeper who was trained with Free Birth Society to be at my birth. And I ended up giving birth in the Austin snowstorm. No water, no power the next day. For a whole week, we had no water and no power. So I wouldn't have been able to even leave my house if I wanted to birth in a hospital or a birthing center. So because I was planned and prepared for a free birth outside the system, I was perfectly safe and happy and had the most amazing experience in my house at home, and stayed in bed for 40 days, the whole postpartum Ayurvedic rituals. That's actually all over the world. And the same with my third birth, wild pregnancy, and another beautiful sovereign birth at home outside of the system with my third baby.
Is that the video that you have at the very top pinned on your Instagram profile, your third baby?
Yeah, that's my second one. That was nature, born in the snowstorm.
Wow. Okay. In the snowpocalypse of Austin, like several years back.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing, incredible. I'm really hoping that anyone listening, most of us are beyond our childbearing years, but we've got children, right? Or grandchildren at this point. And so I feel very, very called to share this episode, my goodness, because we're just awakening to some of this, and we can be supported. And there are so many other pathways. Once you start to awaken, you're like, whoa, it's like it's a never ending root. The root becomes the new root of the root of the root of the root, right? But know your roots.
Know your roots. And that's what radical means. The definition of radical is of the root, to grasp at the root.
Amazing. I love that. So good. You mentioned something about the placenta, and I've also heard you share about how you kept your third baby connected to the umbilical cord and to the placenta until it just naturally was time, right? And the second baby, I think you burned, you did a little bit of
Yes.
burning. Oh my gosh, I'm remembering this. I was so moved. I was like spellbound. In fact, I'll link those episodes to this one in the show notes because I want people to really get like a breadth of you. Like there's just so much. But can we talk about the importance of the placenta? Even the word, I think we've been so programmed to like, ooh, gross, or don't talk about that, and it's just, and I remember my mother preserving hers, and I don't know if
Wow.
with my younger brother, and we all just thought she was a little out there. I'm not gonna lie. Like now we know
Mhm.
she was a full-on pioneer. She was a badass,
Yes.
still is to this day, but back then it wasn't as common. It's still not as common. But let's talk about placenta, the umbilical cord, and what do my listeners and viewers need to know from you and all of your beautiful wisdom?
Yeah, so the placenta is seen as the baby's sacred like guide. The placenta is with baby through the whole gestation and is there with baby until it is severed. And so that's why so many people all over the world, different cultures, have a beautiful sacred ritual in the severing of the placenta, whether it's through fire or cutting with the knife or scissors. But it's just thanking the placenta. Thank you for giving baby life. Without the placenta, baby wouldn't be here. So it's just honoring this sacred organ and the spiritual essence that this placenta holds. And yeah, with my second baby, we burned it in a ceremony with fire. And there's a whole, you can do research. It's all online, but our placentas are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've heard different numbers from 50,000 to 500,000. I have a really good friend who's in the business. He showed me on his phone, calculated it all, sometimes even over $1 million. They use placentas for skin grafts in the cosmetic industry, for beauty products, for skin stem cells, healing victims with burns. Our placentas are just filled with nutrients and stem cells and all kinds of healing properties. So different companies use them for different things. Our placentas are essentially being taken away from us in the hospitals. And of course, different hospitals have different regulations. Some might not even know it's happening. They're private companies that come in, maybe they're donating them. So it's different all over, but just to know just to even know. Most women don't even know. So the first step is education, because education creates change. Education shifts consciousness. So even if you don't care about your placenta and you just want them to take it, that's fine. But a lot of women want their placenta and they'll keep it and they'll bury it back into the earth in a sacred ceremony and an offering, give it back to the earth. And in the lotus birth, it's beautiful because they say that like when the umbilical's cut, like the baby will react. The baby can feel it. The baby can respond. And then all of a sudden it's just gone. And the analogy is as if you were a child and you had a puppy, and then all of a sudden just one day the puppy's gone and no one said anything about it. That's kind of like the trauma that's created with just how quick the placentas are taken from the babies, and there's no kind of honoring and saying goodbye and thanking. So just kind of bringing in that consciousness into it. And, some women eat the placentas, they'll have them encapsulated, dried. Some women will make a tincture with their placenta, which can last up to like 80 years. And you could take it in your menopause years. You can give it to your child when they're having some illness, any kind of thing, medical thing that your child's going through. You can use some of the placenta tincture to help them.
I mean,
So yeah.
for 7 figures, you might want to look into keeping that or figuring out how to then at the very minimum be of support for others who may need that, right? So yeah. Oh my gosh. I heard you mention that it was like 50,000 or maybe up to 500,000, but now you're even seeing over $1 million. That's insane. But it goes to show yet again how disconnected we are to our value, to our worth, to our wisdom, to our connection to the divine.
Yes.
This is the divine feminine right here. This is the actual portal. I'm getting the full body tingles as I say that.
Right. And that's why it's like, just even know. Women don't even know. Women don't even know that they don't have to birth in a hospital. Women don't even know that they don't have to have someone come and stick their fingers inside them and check how big their cervix is, and that actually interrupts the whole flow of the birth. Women don't even know they can say no. They can change healthcare providers at 38 weeks if they don't like them, because we've been so indoctrinated to listen outside of ourselves and to not trust that inner knowing. The red flags are always there, and our trauma response kicks in, and we go into freeze and we go into fawning when we really want to get up and leave. But we don't, we stay, we freeze, and that's how the violence happens against us. And it's so normalized. Essentially the raping of women in the hospital systems in birth has become so normalized. The violence that is happening in the hospital rooms, even at home with midwives, has become so normalized. Women don't even know what's happening to them, that they were completely violated. It's become so normalized, just like all the violence on the planet to all women, or to women all over the planet and to the earth.
I'm getting super present too. And why does then almost every single woman that I know feel inherently unsafe in her body, inherently unsafe in the world, inherently unsafe walking this planet? And it starts there. It starts in the womb, because your mother experienced it, her mother experienced it, and you're carrying all that. Now, for the women that are listening or watching that had a hysterectomy or didn't have children, that's me. Fibroids. I looked like I was 5 months pregnant at the time, which was back in 2011. I was told there were no other options. There's a whole lot of more awareness around this now, but I was on TV at the time and I couldn't look 5 months pregnant, and I had health insurance that would just gladly take care of it. Right. And by the way, give me 3 months off and pay me. And I looked at the medical bill and I was like, wow, that was $150,000. And how I have felt ever since has not been the same. And I've done a lot of healing around that. And then at your retreat, the deepest parts, it's like I went to some deeper roots on that. But can you speak to that, of the women who are like, how does this apply to me if I've never had kids, or I have a hysterectomy, and how does my womb also benefit from this womb wisdom, the healing, or all the things that we're really talking about at the deepest root?
Yes. So even for those who may have had hysterectomies, which is such a high number on this planet, the energy of your womb is still with you, is always with you. You can connect to the essence of your womb, even if she was removed and who knows where she went. You can still connect to your womb wherever she is on the planet, and to the sacred space where she once was. You can connect to that place, and you can also connect to the cosmic womb. So if you don't have your actual physical womb, you can still do the rituals. You can still do the womb steams, the yoni steams. You will benefit from the healing waters and the oils of the plants going up into the vagina, up into the space where your womb was. And you can connect to the divine mother. And that's actually the severance from the divine mother is the root cause of all of the womb disease, our disconnection to the divine feminine and to the goddess. And we were never taught anything about the sacred feminine. And so many of the women I work with who come to me with fibroids and cysts and just all kinds of ailments in their womb, it's the same every time. They usually have a deep, like kind of a mother wound, or they are completely disconnected from their inner feminine.
My gosh, as you were saying that, and you're talking about how to connect to like our uterus, our womb, any place in the earth, all of a sudden my whole womb became activated, which is right. You're totally nodding like, yep, of course. I mean, we are so cosmically, divinely connected to every parts of ourselves in this life and every life before and after. You mentioned womb steam, and so have I a couple of different times. Can we break that down, what that is? You mentioned the herbs, and I know some people like Jaguar, whom I met at your retreat, Jaguar woman, she likes to add sea salt and sometimes honey. And so I did a womb steam with her, and I'll share my experience after you kind of unpack what that is. And maybe what is the difference between that and potentially a yoni steam, and maybe they're one and the same. And why would maybe someone call it a yoni versus a womb steam? And is that just preference and semantics? Or what is your take on that?
So I was first introduced to it as yoni steam, I believe. I'm trying to think in Sacred Woman in the book, I think she might call it a womb steam. I'm not sure exactly, but they're used interchangeably. Essentially, the yoni is the Sanskrit word for vagina, but the womb steam is steaming more than the vagina. It's going all the way up into the womb, which is why Jaguar calls it womb steam and the essence of the womb, because it's healing the womb. It's the heat it's the mixture. So I'll go to what a womb steam is, a yoni steam. You'll hear them. They're both essentially the same. But you take herbs. It could be one plant. It could be rosemary. It could be rose. It could be a blend of beautiful plants that you buy off Etsy or that you make from your garden. But you can take the plants and you bring the water to a boil. Then you add the plants in, you turn it down to a simmer, put the lid on and let it simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. And then you remove it from the stove and you can pour it into another sacred container that's wood or ceramic or glass. You don't want to use metal. And you squat over this bowl or over the hot pot and you let the steam, the hot steam, come up into the vagina, into the canal, up into the womb space. And it is the mixture of the heat, the water, the warmth, the medicinal essential oils from the plants rising up and the properties of the plants rising up into the womb. And the most important part of the steam is your intention. Why are you here? That's all medicine making. The most important part is the intention and the prayers that are going in to the making of the plant. So when you're at the stove and you're stirring it, you're thanking the water, the fire, the plants. Thank you, God. Thank you, Creator, for making this medicine that's for us to use for our own healing, for the healing of the planet. And so what is your intention? I want to heal my womb. I want to remove this fibroids. It could be a spiritual intention, an emotional, a physical. I love to steam on a full moon or on a new moon or right after my bleed or right before my bleed, whenever I intuitively feel called. You can also steam with just water. Water itself is a consciousness. Water itself is, of course, the most healing element on the planet. And so if you don't have a plant, know that your prayers and intentions with just the steam and water can be just as powerful and healing.
So beautifully said, by the way. You are so beautiful. You are like such a divine essence. And it's just, it's very, very beautiful to be in your presence. Yeah. What a gift. What a gift. Very healing and it gives me permission also to keep my heart so open and soft, but yet there's a power in that softness, and so I just want to take a moment to honor you and just who you are. Yeah, because anyone who knows a little bit of your story, and you share a little bit more in the other episodes, so I will link to that. But you've grown, you've opened, you've activated, you have done so much of your own healing, and now you get to be this wisdom keeper and share it with so many other women that need it, that are starving for it. So thank you. Starving. Yes.
Yeah.
Starving.
And I love that you had your womb scene with Jaguar Woman. I want to hear it. And you said you're going to share about it. But she taught me, you add the salt and you mix it beforehand with your hands so you can break up the plant matter even more. And then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, your retreat was in September in the Austin sort of Texas Hill Country. And it was hot as hell. I'm not used to that. I'm from like the beaches in coastal California. So I was like, it was 105 degrees. And I was like, are you kidding? I was waiting outside. And then I realized she was going to have me do the steam outside. I was like, I don't think I can do that. And she was like, no problem. We don't suffer around here. I just freaking love Jaguar. So we come back into her room, her suite or whatever that was, and which had a whole view of like all of Texas Hill Country, it seemed, and like hawks were in the sky and the oak trees on the land. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I spoke up, which I always do. But still, I was like, oh God, I'm going to sound like such a diva, right? But she's like, no, girl. I'm like, I'm going through menopause. I can't. Anyway, so all that to be said, make sure whomever's going to try this on, be in a comfortable room, right? Oh, who's this?
This is Nature Guy.
Hi,
just came up.
Baby number 2.
My snow baby, snowstorm baby.
Hi, how are you? You look so much like your mommy and daddy. That was so fun. Yeah, so we sat there with the big old clay pot.
I'll bear here.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Massaging all the herbs. And that was like 15 minutes just kind of dropping in with her. And then like we go in and then she adds the sea salt. And now I'm like massaging even more. And I'm already feeling myself getting activated. And I'm feeling connected. And then she talks about how like my grandmother and my great grandmother, like their bodies decompose. They are of the earth. Like this is all part of my ancestral healing. And I was like, I got present to that for the first time. I was like, wow, it was all again, very new for me, but my whole body was in receptivity. And I was like, this feels right. This is so right. And so then she put a sheet over me and she's like, it's time to steam. Then her assistant Shannon comes in and very ritualistically, like pours in the hot boiling water. And then she was like, okay, just get yourself comfortable. She gave me different ideas of how I could kind of squat or have one knee up or lean up against the bench. And I found one that felt good for me. And I felt very protected, like I was not open, although I learned later I didn't really care about that stuff, like 2 days later into your retreat. But it was very, very rewilding for me. And so, yeah, I sat there and she kind of left the room after like 10 minutes of just chatting with me and just dropping in with me. And she was kind of like laying like this goddess. I swear she needed a cigarette, just chatting with me in bed, right? Next thing I know, I'm feeling all of this beautiful divine frequency really open my heart. And then it felt like it activated my third eye, like boom. And I saw out again the window, and I just knew that I needed to offer my prayers and my apologies to the lands of Texas, because that's when I realized I was so mad since I had arrived. It'd been so hard. And I was like, I had to fully surrender, like be here fully and honor why I'm here. And I felt more opened and more connected to my body, and because of that, the womb, I'd never even thought about that. I thought I was counted out because of his direct me. And then she came back in and she said, here's your castor oil, and I want you to complete. And I didn't really know what that meant. She didn't say it. She wasn't explicit. She knew how to handle each woman in front of her. She was intuitively guided. It's like, I didn't know what she was saying, but I knew what she meant. And so I knew I was supposed to complete in my own way of just really touching myself and honoring myself. And it was so beautiful. I felt more juicy and alive than I ever had in my life. I felt more connected than I ever had in my life. I walked out of there and I was like, I was one with the oak trees. I was one with the butterflies. I was that's like bowed down to earth, Mother Earth. And sorry. And I was like, I was just like, oh my God, I've been so mad at you, Texas. And I haven't thought you were beautiful because I was comparing and all the things. And I'm just getting the full chills as I talk about it again. Because, I was just like, it was so powerful for me. And then we were doing dinner or something. And then I got to share with other women and about my experience, like me too. And other women were talking about their experience. And the next day was a yoni mapping in a group, which was a whole next level. And I don't think I could have been prepared for that if I hadn't done that. So every part of your retreat just prepared us along the journey. But these are things that I never in a million years ever would have thought I would do, much less talk about. And now want to then open up this kind of experience in my retreats, even though I'm not the facilitator of it. Is like, how can I now be the bridge to bring more women into this kind of healing?
Thank you for sharing that. And that's it. The way you felt connected to the earth, that's everything. That's it right there. Earth our body. That's saying that phrase, earth our body. When our spirits leave these bodies, where do our bodies go? Back to the earth. No matter what you believe in, when your time is done, this skin suit is going to go back down, back to the earth. There's no avoiding it.
What are those lyrics? Earth, my body,
water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit, earth, my body.
Oh my God, you have such a beautiful voice. Yeah, even the playlist too, like I still play it every day. It's still so alive in me. I don't know what you'll do with Rewild going forward. Maybe you'll have a more intimate, type of retreat. Maybe you'll go big and bold again.
Yeah.
Needed medicine in this world.
Totally.
I want to, it's all in the same sort of field, but you talk a lot about the women are so disconnected and the wild women are coming back to nature, to the trees, to the plants, to the animals. And that's definitely in my path. All the women that I'm working with, that's definitely a big part of our journey. The Animal Power book by Allison Charles has been like deep for me this past year and a half. But I want to talk about something that I've heard you speak to, and that's rose energy medicine. Rose is so powerful for me, showing up everywhere in this house that I'm renting in Lakeway, Texas. The rose gardens are in the front, in the back. And I'm just like, the first thing I felt called to do was just to honor them. And and it was just like, whoa, okay, you're here. Thank you. And I put them out all on my retreats. It's like probably my biggest investment, to be honest. I want the women just to feel like they're in that frequency, which is known to be frequency, what 320 megahertz or something.
Megahertz. Yeah.
Can you expand? I want to hear it from you.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
rose energy medicine. Okay.
It's funny because I really feel like, not to like take it, but in my Wisdom of the Earth medicinal aromatherapy training, which I did in 2014, we learned about the essential oils and the frequencies. And in my guidebook we were given, there's a chart that gives you the list of the measurements of different plants. Lavender measures at this hertz, rose measures at this hertz. And we learned that rose, the damask rose, Damascena rose, is the highest vibrational flower on the planet, measuring at 320 hertz, that they're able to measure. They have a special machine that can measure frequency, and then what kind of diseases measure at certain hertz. So the numbers. So it just shows you why working with essential oils is so healing and so powerful, is because the frequency is higher than the different diseases. Cancer measures at this. Canned food measures at 0. A dead body. So they can measure different frequencies, and the plants measure at different frequencies. And so rose is the highest vibrational flower, which means that it has the power if our hearts are open to it. If we're not open to receive the medicine and the plants, then they won't work at their full capacity. So rose has the power to address all physical, emotional, and physical dis-ease, being the highest vibrational flowers. And the essential oil of rose is so expensive because it takes 1,000 rose petals to make 1 drop of essential oil. So pure rose is going to be hundreds. Rose essential oil is going to be like over $400 for like a tiny bottle. So just to know that with the quality that you're working with, if you're going to Whole Foods and you see a rose essential oil, it's not going to be just fully pure rose. It might be adulterated. It might have a fragrance in it. It might be mixed with a carrier oil like jojoba. But still, it's still amazing to be able to have this rose and work with it in any capacity you have. The roses that you buy at the grocery store are going to be sprayed with pesticides. So that's not the rose that's measuring at 320 megahertz, but it's still beautiful to bring them into your space and to see the rose. You can work with rose in the rose water sprays. They often are the damask rose is often in the rose water sprays. But just connecting to the frequency of rose, like I said, works on your heart. Rose is the medicine of the heart. She works with the physical heart, all different kind of diseases of the heart, the emotional heart. She helps us to open up our hearts. Just smelling rose uplifts the spirit. And I've worked with a lot of women that actually say that they don't like rose. They don't like the smell. It's like an old grandmother, or, different comments about rose. And it's because what? They're disconnected from the divine mother. They're disconnected from the goddess, because rose is the flower of the goddess. Rose is the symbol of the divine feminine. There are many sacred mystery schools all about rose, the path of the sacred rose, the sacred rose sisterhood, the rose path. There's so many mystical teachings about rose and different throughout history, mystical groups of women that are just all centered around rose. So I love that you have rose in Texas, because that's a gift.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, listen, I know that they're using like the least amount of like crap and toxins in the way that they take care of the lawn here. That was super important for me when I moved in, and to confirm that with the landlord. But yeah, there's also ways to get roses like from your local farmers market, right? And like
yes,
growers, like there's
organic rose petals you can order on Mountain Rose Herbs. There's different suppliers that will have organic rose petals that you can make tea, that you can use in your womb steams, that you can use for offerings for the land. Yeah.
Yes. By the way, another thing that I don't think I would have ever done. So after your retreat, it was like 1 week later was my retreat. And then the very day my retreat ended, I moved. I was literally meeting the movers in the driveway of this house. And what I felt called to do, and I know it's because I was so opened by your Rewild experience, or just knowing you at all. Honestly, people got to just follow you. So I'll link everything in the show notes, but getting a sense of what's possible, that's a deep remembrance, right, of that essence that you so freely share and express. But I felt very called to offer the matriarch tree in my backyard. It was super clear. She let me know she was the matriarch. I asked. It was like I had heard Allison Charles talk about that in the opening drum circle. Like, this tree wants to be known. She wants, and I was like, there's got to be a tree in this backyard. And it was just so beautiful to know. And then and make my offerings continually. Like at the end of, I did a virtual womb steam last Friday. And when it was all over, it was like, oh, I went to offer that to her. And so
Yes.
it's just these new ways in which I'm in communion with Mother Earth has been so
Yes.
cool. Um, just to weave it back, probably as we're about to wrap up this conversation, there's something that I feel like is really important that wants to come through. And then I want to find out any final thoughts that you would feel really called to share as well. But a lot of women that I know, including myself, feel very sort of stuck in our bodies. And you're so free in your body. And I could easily say, oh, it's because you're a Black woman and Black women are like all these programmed thoughts. It's like, no, that is absolutely not true. But I feel very kind of stuck in my hips. And it's not about
Mhm.
not being sexual. There's the distinction between being sexual and just feeling like
Sensual.
sensual. Yes. And so I'd love for you to just expand anything that you know would be valuable to share about that and why that's happening. I know it connects to our whole conversation, but also what are a
Yeah.
couple of things that we can do to begin to open ourselves up so that we're
Mhm.
no longer shut off from that sensuality and connection to our body.
Yeah, well, it's known that women, we store our emotions in our hips, in our, in the womb, in the pelvis, this whole space. This is the sacral chakra. This governs our emotions, our sensuality. This is the waters of our being, spiritually, physically. This is movement. And so there is so much repressed
Mm.
energy and shame in this whole area because of the sexual organs, because of the reproductive organs, because of anything that we hold regarding our sexuality as well as our sensuality. We are told, we're programmed that if you walk like this, if you move like this, you'll be raped. It's not safe to show your sensual essence, which is all part of the control and the programming, because the most powerful woman is connected to her sensual energy. This is her creative center. This is where she holds and births life. This is where she creates her dreams, her businesses. This is all in this sacral energy, the sacral area. So where we're just stiff and repressed and shut down, what is that? It's just dry, shriveled anger, sadness, stagnation. It's not the full expression of your soul, of yourself, of your being. And so dancing is so big. And that's why, right, there is an essence to that, the energy of the drumming and the dance that comes from Africa. In Africa, they dance daily because they know twerking, shaking the hips, moving the butt, glute, that releases the stored energy. It releases the trauma, it releases shame. And I actually had a session with a woman who's from Haiti, and she says, even there, you're taught, it's been so programmed there that only respectable women don't dance like that. Respectable women don't move like that. Even like where these movements come from nowadays, it is seen as if you're respectable, you don't dance like that. And so what's happening? Diseases of the womb, fibroids, all kinds of ailments in the womb in this area because they're just trapped.
Mm.
And she says the only time people dance like that is when they're drunk at weddings or like
Right.
at a party. And so just an invitation to move, to come into your bodies in your way, put on the music that you like. And I love to have my clients do a ritual where they're naked and they start with like putting oil all over their bodies and just giving themselves a massage, massaging their womb, anointing themselves with rose or any essential oil they have. And just in the candlelight, just moving and finding your intuitive movement, finding your flow, connecting to the water. Water, like I said, governs this whole area. So starting to bring life and energy and reverence for the water that you drink, knowing the waters that are around you and the lands that you're on, giving thanks to water. Water is the only element that scientists can't quite figure out, is the element that is closest to God, to source. And so connecting to waters, feeling, allowing yourself to cry, thanking your, just allowing movement to flow through you in whatever way that looks like.
So beautiful. It's so interesting too, because as I asked that question at the very, very tail end of what you were sharing, you completely froze like this, but I love it. And please, Mark, who's my editor, keep that in because it's perfect, right? Everything is so perfect. In our last few minutes together, this has been such a gift. I'd love to know What does it mean to you to be in your divine feminine? And what are some words that you feel really called to share with those who, it's almost all women, 99%, who are listening or watching from you today as you sit in your brand new domicile of a little mountain town in Mexico?
Yeah, to be in my divine feminine to me is to be connected to my heart and to my womb, and the connection between the heart and the womb, to consciously connect to my womb space and whatever practices and rituals that is, because that is the womb. The womb is the divine feminine. And for me, a huge part of my path was connecting to my menstrual blood. Every month when I bleed, I offer my blood to the earth in a sacred exchange and reciprocity. It's feeding the earth that feeds us. And like you are giving your herbs, your womb steam water to the earth. It's just creating that symbiosis, creating that reciprocity, that exchange of the mama, the great mother, who this is our home, this is our body. It's loving the earth. It's loving yourself, loving your womb, loving your blood is loving God that created you, the goddess within. It's loving the earth. It's all one. So it's the oneness. The divine feminine to me is connecting to the oneness in every single thing around us, all people, all plants, all animals, and just living in love and unconditional love.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Is that the message for the collective also? It feels like it kind of was.
That's the message.
That was all. That was one. Is there anything you wish you'd been asked or that wants to come through?
I'll just say, I don't think I shared that I did the Radical Birth Keeper School in 2021 after the birth of my second child. I did the Radical Birth Keeper School, but before that, I did Innate Traditions Postpartum Care. And so just like, yeah, just sharing my deep love for the birth space and after birth, caring for women after birth. That's a whole other thing that determines the health of our wombs, is how we rest after we give birth and how we rest when we are bleeding, because that's where it starts. When we're taught as young women to rest when we're on our nature, his name is nature. When we rest.
Put up again for those of you listening and you can't see, just the cutie pie wants to be on camera, wants to be seen. So sweet.
So cute. When we rest, when we bleed, we're training the nervous system to be able to rest after we give birth, because it's so hard for women to rest and receive after they give birth. They want to be up and at it the next week. They're just standing in line at the post office. They're running errands. They're going out to dinner. They're doing laundry. They're cleaning the house. And then 40 years later, the womb is impacted by that. And so just resting and receiving.
Thank you for that. Yeah, beautiful message.
Yeah.
And where's the best place for those who feel called to want to connect and reach out and possibly even engage in some of your incredible services, if not for themselves, but definitely for yourselves? Give yourself that gift, but also for your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, the loved ones, the young women in your life that need to know about this.
Yeah. Instagram is always great. Devana.com is my website. I do one-on-one work. I'm going to be launching a group program, Goddess Within, that's going to be starting in 2025, a group journey, a 6-month journey online. So yeah, I do virtual sessions as well as in-person birth support and postpartum care.
So good. My goodness. Thank you so much for your time today. You're such a gift.
Yeah.
Oh, I learned a lot and I got to share a lot, cry a lot. And this was more than I could have even hoped for. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on Fire and Soul.
Thank you, Michelle.